Hello viewers, today I'll be reviewing Handbook to Exegesis of the New Testament, edited by Stanley E. I read the book in PDF form and it runs to a total of 638 pages. It is certainly not a light read, but it's a comprehensive guide that introduces the main methods and approaches to interpreting the New Testament. Rather than being a single author work, it's a collection of essays by various leading scholars, and together they cover almost the full range of exegetical methods that a serious student of the scripture would encounter. The book is structured in two major parts. Part 1 deals with methods of exegesis. Here we find chapters on textual criticism, which helps us establish the most reliable form of the biblical text. Linguistic approaches, which emphasize grammar, semantics, and discourse analysis, and the historical critical methods such as source criticism, form criticism, and redaction criticism. It also covers literary and rhetorical approaches, social scientific approaches, and finally theological exegesis, which explores the relationship between interpretation and theology. Part 2 moves from method to application, showing how these approaches can be used in practice. Different contributors apply exegetical methods to the Synoptic Gospels, the Johannine literature, Pauline epistles, the general epistles, and Revelation. This helps the reader to see not only the theory, but also how different tools might be applied to different kinds of New Testament writings. One of the strengths of this book is its comprehensiveness. If you want a survey of nearly every significant exegetical approach in New Testament studies, this is a one-stop resource. Another strength is its breadth of expertise. Each essay is written by someone who has devoted years, sometimes decades, to their field. And third, the book makes clear that exegesis is not simply about academic curiosity, but is ultimately meant to serve the theology and life of the church. At the same time, there are some limitations to note. First, the book offers limited practical guidance. Despite being called a handbook, it is not a step-by-step manual that shows you exactly how to do exegesis. Instead, it explains the theory and history of different methods. So, if someone is looking for worked examples, exercises, or a clear process they can follow in their own study, this book may leave them wanting. It's better thought of as a reference work than a how-to guide. Second, because the book was published in the late 1990s, some parts now feel a bit dated. There have been newer discussions in areas such as narrative criticisms, post-colonial readings, and theological interpretation of scripture, which are not reflected in this book. That said, in the midst of all the technical material, I personally enjoyed certain chapters very much. One was Jewish Backgrounds by Paul R. Trebilco. Among many things Trebilco discussed, he explains the significance of Qumran and notes the similarities in vocabulary, doctrines, and organizational practices between the Qumran sect and early Christianity. Expressions like overseers and works of the law appear in both contexts. Both Qumran and early Christian communities were eschatological. They believed the end was near and structured their communal life accordingly. practices like the sharing of property and regular participation in a meal illustrate this. What stood out to me is how these parallels show that Christianity is deeply rooted in Jewish traditions, since the Qumran community itself was a Jewish sect. Another chapter I especially enjoyed was Hellenistic Philosophy and the New Testament by Gregory E. Sterling. Sterling explores how Greek philosophical traditions, particularly Stoicism, Platonism, and to some extent Aristotelian thought, shaped the intellectual climate of the first century. This background is not merely academic, it sheds light on New Testament writings themselves. For instance, Paul's use of terms like conscience, nature, and even his arguments in Acts chapter 17 resonate with concepts familiar to Hellenistic audiences. Sterling's chapter reminded me that the New Testament was not written in a vacuum. It engaged not only with Jewish thought but also with the broader philosophical world of the Greco-Roman context. To conclude, I would say that Handbook to Exegesis of the New Testament is a valuable research and reference resource in the field of biblical studies. It gives readers a comprehensive map of the different exegetical methods, showing both their history and their application. While it may not provide step-by-step practical guidance, it serves as a strong foundation for deeper study and scholarly work. Overall, this book stands out as a solid reference work for anyone engaging seriously with the study of the New Testament. Thank you.